Come say, what were you going to say? We started the show now. They'll have heard it's not your favorite conference. Come and say. Well, I'll speak for you. It wasn't your favorite conference? My son's here in the background.
Yeah.
Why?
I think it's nothing against Bitcoin magazine, but slightly poorly, man.
All right. I think what Connor's trying to say is there was a big trade-off having Trump there because Secret Service meant that.
Oh yeah, I mean it's going to be really clunky to move from one part of the conference to the other with that, right? Like, but man, I think that's just a testament to how far that conference has come, which is kind of crazy. It went from like 2K people in 2019 to the one in
it's great.
Yeah, I was writing for Bitcoin magazine at the time, and that was a really special conference because it was like the first time they executed anything like that, and that to this day is still one of my favorites. The venue was cool. It was like in that garage kind of industrial setting in San Francisco. Yeah, this one was on a whole different caliber though, and it's weird to see how many just competing groups there were at something like this. Whereas back then that was like kind of just really hardcore Bitcoiners. And
one team, man.
Yeah. And this is just kind of like a weird, kind of a very eclectic group of people where it's like suddenly you have like politicians and you have like normies who are just doing this because Trump's there, and
lobbyists.
Yeah. Lobbyists. Yeah. Shitcoiners. There were some shitcoiners. There were a lot of shitcoiner side events at this, which was interesting. But
I kind of don't care about shitcoins anymore because I think we've already won. And like when you've won that battle, what's the point of having the fight anymore? It's like we won. You're having fun, and we're doing the serious work.
Yeah, we've got Orange Man talking at our conferences now.
Yeah, but he kept saying your Bitcoins and crypto.
His sign off: have fun with your Bitcoins and your crypto and anything else you're playing with. Yeah. It's like,
we put on a conference with 500 people last year, and it stressed the fuck out, especially Danny.
Yeah,
it's a lot of work to do it for 25,000 and moving venues, and cities. I can't fathom how much work goes into it.
So much
to pull it off. And then have the Secret Service there because you've got the most important person in the world come in, almost high profile.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they did a great job. Unfortunately, we found out next year's is clashing with the Oslo Freedom Forum.
Is it?
Yeah, which is frustrating.
That's a strange move.
My expectation is it's one of those things where if you want to go to Vegas, it's like, what have you got available? And they've seen what's available and they've booked it. Without probably realizing, I doubt they would have clashed knowing. That's unfortunate because they're both important and great events.
Yeah, but I feel like Oslo would be much higher signal in a lot of ways.
It's different.
Yeah.
It is higher signal because you get together in very small groups and spend a lot of time together.
Yeah.
With this year I was there with. Obviously, Gladstein's there and CK are there. I was there with Mallers and Miles and I don't even know if people release who's there, but it is very high signal. Like Lynn Alden's there, but it's this conference is a bit different. It's a bit more marketing focused. Like we're here to promote the football club and catch up with people we don't see that often. So they're just different events, and they both serve a really important purpose. But I mean, my loyalty will always be Oslo Freedom Forum, like fucking hands down. So it's like it's disappointing because I'd love to have seen it in Vegas, and I'll have FOMO in Oslo. But if I was
but would you rather be in Oslo or Vegas?
Oh no, I'm just so fucking loyal to Alex Gladstein. I'm gonna be, and CK. I'm going to be at the Oslo Freedom Forum, and the work they're doing is both sides are doing important work. It's just annoying, but I'm very loyal to Alex and. I love the Oslo Freedom Forum. I had to miss it 2 years in a row because I was in court with Craig Wright, consecutive years.
Oh, yeah. Hey, cheers to that, by the way.
Yes. I've got a part of the money back as well.
Yeah?
Yeah. I'm still fighting for more of it because I just got an email today. They're appealing his global freezing order, but we're getting closer.
It feels like closing a lot of chapters recently. It's been just like the entire Bitcoin industry in general. Just like there's been a huge shift. I feel like Trump talking at the conference was that mean, it was pandering, and nothing really that interesting was said. Not even the stockpile that he was talking about wasn't even really talking about a reserve necessarily. It was just like not selling what we already have.
And then they fucking split it yesterday.
Yeah.
What a troll.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think that's peak awareness, getting Trump there. I would hope Vegas would go back to more signal, but if we're mid-bull market, it'll be fucking...
It's going to be crazy.
Yeah.
Vegas is going to be a dangerous place for a conference, too.
Yeah, Vegas is dangerous.
There'll be a lot of companies running around with corporate cards that should be probably keeping track of their employees during that conference.
And if we're in a bull market, I think they're going to have some fun. But I'd like it to go back to more signal.
Yeah, I don't know if it will, though, because I feel like what they go for at this point is it's basically like a festival, right?
Yeah.
Like this is like a Bonnaroo or a Coachella for Bitcoiners where you can just go to a really fun party city and just hang out with Bitcoiners. And,
I mean, I will get I'd get FOMO, whichever one I'm at.
Yeah.
But I think you've got to pick what's important. And look, they do an unbelievable marketing job and awareness job for Bitcoin. And you see these like whiny bitches on Twitter again, like moaning about like a sponsor or a speaker. It's like, fucking give them a rest. Look, David Bailey's literally got President Trump there talking about Bitcoin. Shut the fuck up.
Yeah. I mean, at this point, you just have to respect it. Like,
David Bailey is just an impressive human being. And he's so Bitcoin. I don't think I've ever seen him wearing a t-shirt which hasn't got Bitcoin on it.
Yeah.
He's like a permanent Bitcoin walking advert.
Yeah, he is.
Lobbyist, campaigner, promoter.
He's one of the more colorful characters too. And like I think that's like why the conference and everything has gotten to the scale that it's gotten to, right? Because David Bailey was willing to just say, fuck it, we're going to try this thing, which sounds insane. I mean, most people thought like the Miami thing was crazy in 2021 during COVID. Consensus was doing theirs remote, and David Bailey and the team decided to risk it, and it pulled off. Like, I think that was like, in so many ways, like that was the most seminal event so far in that company's history in terms of like changing the trajectory of what it could be, because that laid the foundation for being able to have a platform where President Trump and also another presidential candidate is speaking. I mean, that's, if you would have like said that 5 years ago when they did 2019, I don't think anyone would have maybe not been surprised, but that would have kind of just blown anyone's expectations out of the water. Right.
Yeah. It was a statement. It was a very Bitcoin statement. We're putting this on and fuck you. Like, fuck you, we're putting it on. You can stay at home if you want, but we're putting it on. And
yeah,
you got those shitty articles. It was a super spreader event. But it was a great event. I don't like Miami as a city.
I don't either.
But I liked that event.
Yeah.
A lot.
That event was fun. But yeah, Miami can kind of like take a walk. Mining Disrupt is there every year for Bitcoin miners too. And it's at the worst time. It's in like late July or like mid-July or something. And it's like, that's literally the worst time ever to be in that climate zone.
Dude, last year, listen, because we always book an Airbnb and build the studio, right? Last year we booked one and we paid like 14 grand for it, whatever. Wait, this gets worse. And the photos look great. We turn up and it's proper ghetto shithole property. We get inside and we're like, we can't stay here. Yeah, I think we had something like Kathy Wood booked or Sailor. And we're like, we can't bring Sailor here. So we contacted Airbnb. Actually, it's even worse than that. No, it gets worse than that. Sorry, we booked somewhere the day before we were leaving, weren't they? They cancelled. Do you remember that, Con? Yeah, so we get an email saying, oh, they've cancelled on you. Like, what? So the way people scam on Airbnb is quite clever. If you go on Airbnb and you have a look and there's properties that look similar, they don't have multiple properties. What they do is they put up these properties, they cancel you the day before you're going and go, oh, I've got another one you can go to. And they put you in another one that's like not as good and it's not a good location. It's a complete fucking scam, right? But you're trapped because you're flying in, you've got nowhere to go.
Right.
So you're like, oh, I have to accept it. So they did that to us, right? Then we turn up, it's an absolute shithole, but they won't give us our money back for cancelling. So then we had to book another one. It was like 24 grand. It was unreal. Yeah, we ended up spending like 40 grand to get a property.
Wait, when was this specifically?
Miami.
For 2021?
No, last year.
Last year?
Yeah, well, so we felt scammed. And then I just feel like everything I do in Miami, I'm getting scammed constantly. Just scam. And I was like, I'm done with Miami.
Yeah.
Yeah, people are shooting each other and scamming each other. Fuck that. And so when they said Nashville, I was like, what a great call. Because it's not an easy place to get to.
No, it's not. It's and I'm biased, obviously, being from here, but I think it's a great place for a city, but it is not the easiest place to get to because Nashville's airport is still not like totally internationally equipped. Like there are a few direct flights from London, but it's on like JetBlue and most people don't know what that is.
No, we've got BA now. Okay. Yeah, so we had BA pre-COVID daily. And then after COVID, it was like once a week, and they've built it back. It's nearly, I think it's daily now. If it's not, it's 5 times a week, and it's a great flight home because we'll fly home tonight. It's 9:30 p.m.
Nice.
And we landed in the morning.
You almost got shanghaied in Atlanta,
bro. Did you? That day was so we'd had this lovely family. We have a family holiday every summer. Me and the kids. We take turns to pick somewhere. It was my boy's turn. He picked Jamaica. We went out.
That's sweet.
We had a good time and. I'm usually hard to switch off. I just don't. Yeah, the first couple of days I'm just on my phone working or on my laptop and then down by the pool working. I just went, done, switched the fuck off. And also, usually we go out and do stuff. We did nothing until the last day. We literally just stayed by the pool every day and did nothing. Me and Connor drinking beer and cocktails. And it was lovely. We had this great holiday. And then we're planning to come back. And we had a day where if you have got a bad temper, you would have killed someone. I just managed to keep my cool. It was like thing after thing after. Did you see my tweet?
Well, yeah, it seemed enough to drive a sane man up the wall. Like it.
So the first thing, my daughter left her phone in the taxi, and we luckily got it back because he gave me his card. Then we went to check in and couldn't check in because she didn't have a Nostr, which is like a temporary visa. You have to apply at the airport. We got it 3 minutes before they closed the desk. Finally get on the plane, we get in, and then because of CloudStrike, everything's fucked. And so we wait for our plane, that gets cancelled, then we go and try and get our bags, can't get our bags. It goes on for hours and hours and hours. And we get to the desk, and they finally said they'll put us on a plane at 9:30. And thank my son, he was like, Dad, I don't think we're getting on this plane. I'm like, no, we are. He said, I don't think we are. I think we should get an Airbnb. I'm like, no, we'll be fine, like a dad is. And as she goes to give us the tickets, it already then got put back another couple of hours. And I was like, all right, I'm with you. So we cancelled. She said, look, your bags have already gone. And so we just booked an Uber. It was like a 3.5 hour drive, $1,000, which sounds a lot. You're like, fucking hell, $1,000 on an Uber. But if you could have got 3 flights for that, right, you would have. And then we get there and we think our bags aren't there, eventually find all our bags. So it all worked out fine in the end, but it was such a mission.
Yeah, the Uber from Atlanta to Nashville to me is like the cherry and the cream on top or something, because that's just such an absurd. Like for people not from this area, it's like a 3.5 hour drive to take in an Uber. Yeah, exactly.
But you know what? Actually, it was lovely. I don't know about you, Con, but I loved it. We just got in the car, chilled.
Yeah.
Connor was streaming one of the Rail Bedford games. I was like on my phone.
Oh, that's sweet.
Writing a tweet about the 4.5 million of because we bought $4.5 million of Bitcoin that day with the Gemini investment of the football club.
So really?
Yeah. So
I did not see that.
Well, I'll tell you about that. But we, so I was constructing the tweet on the phone to Cameron Winklevoss, getting this tweet right, and it was just and then we stopped halfway, got a load of shitty food and snacks and slushies, and it was a really nice way to travel. To be honest, if I'm traveling with my kids again and the flight is under 4 hours. And the Uber is the same as the flights, I'd get the Uber.
Yeah.
Because the total journey time's the same because you're sitting around in an airport and then getting your bags. It's just a nicer way to go.
Yeah, it is. And depending on the part of the country, you can see some really pretty stuff too.
Yeah, not at the time of night.
Yeah, not at the time when it was like pitch black. Yeah. And also that drive is like, it's a lot of greenery, but you can't really see much. It's just like basically rolling hills. And
it's my longest Uber.
Yeah, I'd imagine.
I might try and test it. I wonder if you could Uber from one end of the country to the other.
Oh, man.
Let's see what it is.
Probably do like major city to major city, right?
Let's see.
But if you could find an Uber, that would be an absurd.
Let's have a look. See if you can go from New York to LA. All right, let's go. All right, here we go. So we're starting. Should we start in New York? Let's start in New York. This is obscene. All right, JFK to LAX. Is it going to let me do it?
What do you? So yours was like what, like 400, 300,
no, $1,000.
1,000. Okay. Oh, well, that would, I mean, what, over and under on like 10K for this?
Oh, well, are we doing that? All right. What do you reckon?
Oh man, I don't know.
Let's have a look. Let's say
I want to say like just under, but it could be over.
Okay, put yourself in the shoes of somebody doing it. It's what, 24 hours?
I mean, I'd have so many questions.
Hours?
Like, where am I going to sleep? Like, where are you going to sleep?
It's 30 hours straight driving, I reckon.
Oh, no way. It's got to be more
Let's
than that.
have a look on Google Maps.
That's got to be at least a good 40-hour trip.
All right, LAX on Google Maps, directions from JFK. You can tell I've checked out the podcast.
Yeah, this is the content on the final days.
Google Maps is going to be like, just get a fucking flight. All right, here we go. It's 1 day, 17 hours. So it's like 24, 34. Yeah, 41 hours straight driving. See, even if a driver takes it, they're going to tell him. You can say, look, bro, we're going to have to like...
Just like pump them up on amphetamines. It's like, we're not stopping.
Like a German soldier. Yeah. But it's like, you'd have to say, look, we'll stop. We'll have to get asleep. But even then, you want to do... I've done it like from England to the bottom of Spain. And me and my dad, that's a 20-hour drive. We had to stop and sleep.
Yeah.
All right, let's see if we can get...
I was going to say you got a ferry, but that's at like the beginning, so that doesn't really count.
Yeah, it's not having it. Uber's not having it.
Uber's like, no, fuck you.
Yeah, but you're a fucking idiot. What are you doing? Let's try Las Vegas. I wonder what I'm gonna do all afternoon now is I'm gonna be seeing what's the longest Uber you can book. It's just gonna say fuck off. Maybe in LA to Vegas, that'll be a starting point.
I think so.
Yeah, it's not having it.
That would probably be something.
They might have a limit, like 20 hours driving.
Gotta. You know?
What's a shorter one? Okay. JFK to...
Chicago?
Chicago.
Someone might do that.
What do you reckon that is as a drive? That's O'Hara. Is that O'Hara? Yeah, O'Hara Airport. No, it's not even having that. All right. Anyway. Now that's the thing.
This is what Peter's going to be doing now that he's retiring from podcasting. He's going to be looking up driving times.
I'm not retiring.
So this is the part of the interview where I start interviewing you and ask what is happening now. What is next? Is there a big reveal that you can't spill the beans before? Or?
I revealed it on Twitter yesterday. I said we're just rebranding the podcast.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a lot of things happening at the same time. Football club's doing well.
Yeah.
Taking a lot of my time. So I need to be in Bedford. 7 years of flying around the world. It's killed me, man. I've got fat, grey. I need to sort my health out. I don't want to travel anymore. But I also think we're at this inflection point with Bitcoin. I was talking to Harry Sudok about it yesterday. He was referring to Bitcoin mining season 2. He said mining season 1 was essentially ASICs and data centers, but season 2 is this like integration with grids, integration with AI, international expansion. It's like Bitcoin mining has grown up and become part of something else. And I kind of think the same is happening generally everywhere across Bitcoin. And so, if we make a Bitcoin show, we talk to Bitcoiners about Bitcoin, they're with us.
Yeah.
And we've had all those conversations like 50 times or 100 times. And I think there's fatigue in the Bitcoin podcast space. And there's so many people out there doing great shows anyway. So I was like, look, we'll go broad, and I want to capture and talk to other interesting people where Bitcoin might come up. So, for example, if I interview a manager of another football club, we're going to talk about football for a couple of hours and what's it like being a chairman or something. And then they're going to say, well, what's this Bitcoin treasury? And I can explain the strategy to them. And I found out the guitarist and the Architects. Do you know the Architects?
Mm-mm.
There's like a badass UK metal band. He follows me on Instagram. So I was chatting to him. He's like into Bitcoin, so we can talk about music. So it's a broad show, McCormack show or something. And
that sounds awesome.
Yeah.
That kind of sounds like the dream, to be able to springboard from Bitcoin to like general interests, right?
Yeah, look, it might not work. It might just be a smaller show, but I think it's something for me to do and have a change. But I think a lot of this is going to happen in Bitcoin now. Because if we don't do it, it's just going to go onto all the other large podcasts.
What do you mean? Just
like it'll become more of Rogan, more of Lex, more of Tim Pool, more of Logan Paul. You know, all those people are just going to start talking about it more, and because I think we're at that phase. Like I've got this chart that I send to all my sponsors. It's like these concentric circles where Bitcoin started like cypherpunks, and then libertarians, and then the macro people got in, and the governance, and I think the next one's culture. It's just they're part of everything, because I think we spoke about this before, but I mean certainly now, if you write a shitty article about Bitcoin, you got away with it. You don't get away with it now. You're fucking hammered.
Yeah, that's true.
So it's growing up, man. Big change for you, I've heard on the grapevine.
Yes, sir.
I didn't know this.
Yeah. This just happened last week. So I left Luxor, joining Blockspace as editor-in-chief. So going to be going back to more traditional kind of like news coverage, long-form journalism of Bitcoin. Going to be doing some podcast work. Going to be doing some newsletter work. So yeah.
Big change.
Yeah, big change.
Excited?
Big change. Yeah, I'm excited. It's nerve-wracking. You know, it's like content. So it's as you know, it's competitive. But I love the 3 years that I had at Luxor. Learned so much about Bitcoin mining. Did a lot of stuff that I was happy with and proud of. I think that, you know, for me, I kind of got my start in this industry with journalism, and I think that's always where my like heart's going to be. So just kind of one of those career defining moves where it's like, do I want to stay with what I'm doing on the mining side and do research, analysis, content and stuff like that, kind of industry facing, or do I want to open it up to kind of more what I used to do at CoinDesk and Bitcoin Magazine? So
was that like an urge pulling at you to get back to it?
Yeah, a little bit, 100%. Because like, you know, when you're working at like a Bitcoin mining software and services company and you're doing, you know, research, there's only so much that you can ultimately end up saying about certain partners or, you know, competitors, or there's always this feeling that you're not totally going to be able to be objective about everything. At least I felt that way. So, and you know, this will be a, you know, tightrope to walk in my new job too, because we have sponsors, right? So you're always going to be walking that tightrope, as you know. Yeah, it wasn't the kind of work that I like to do. There are a lot of, again, kind of more traditional forms of written media that I would like to dive into with regards to a lot of different moving pieces. And that's the other thing too, is like I love mining, but been neglecting so many other aspects of the Bitcoin landscape. Like I'm behind on Lightning. I used to cover core development a lot, which I'm looking forward to getting back to that. Like I really want to cover the fork wars that we're not really having right now, but you know, everyone's talking about OpCat or OpCTV. I think there's a good opportunity there to kind of make sense for people what the actual landscape is, and also explain why it's so hard to reach consensus on something like that. Because people always talk about consensus as though it's this thing, but it's really more of an idea, you know, rather than something that like you can concretely point out, you know. So I think that's the other thing too, is just wanting to get back more into general Bitcoin, you know, kind of content and analysis. I've been just basically doing mining for the last 3 years. So
yeah, what do you think of the state of Bitcoin journalism, both within kind of like our circles of people, but outside?
Yeah. I think you're seeing a lot of what you're seeing just in general journalism, but in different ways, right? Like I think that you have your incumbents in traditional journalism. So, you know, that have like really covered Bitcoin, I would say, well, in the sense that they've constantly done it, which is like CNBC, Bloomberg, Forbes, although their model is different than what the other ones are doing. I don't know, maybe like the New York Times. And I think you have just like a complete erosion in trust in those institutions. And so like the people who are reading that kind of stuff are probably devout readers and they're just going to believe whatever they believe. But like no one within the industry is reading that stuff. They're reading other things from maybe a CoinDesk journalist that they really like, or the Block. I still think like the CoinDesk, Block, and Blockworks are like pretty strong trade publications. Still think they have a classic problem that a lot of crypto publications have, where it's like you're having to balance people who are lifelong media folks who are, you know, really care about journalism as a craft and like see themselves as journalists and editors, and making sure that they care enough about what they're covering. Because I mean, Bitcoin like Bitcoin and crypto as a trade to cover is like just such an abstract thing. You might get like a finance or an econ major or a guy who works in that industry and like he goes and covers finance and he can know it really well. But it's like you very rarely get like a writer who's really good who's like also degened, and so they can cover DeFi really well. But some of them do much better at this. Like I think Blockworks does a good job. It'll be interesting to see how CoinDesk survives this transition. Bullish just bought them. Bullish is like the exchange that like a bunch of the EOS guys started or something. So they're going through a huge change.
They paid a fuck ton of money for it.
They paid a good amount. I want to say 100 million, but I don't know.
I thought it came in under. I thought it had 80, but like either
something
way,
like that. Yeah,
it's multiple tens. They got consensus as part of it, right?
No doubt. Yeah, because that's the cash cow.
It's a weird thing for them to buy, though.
Yeah, I think it is. Media is like I think media is either something that is like kind of company owned in the sense that it's like independent stuff that someone really like what Bitcoin did is a good example. Like kind of the guys who built it from the ground up have the most stake, or otherwise it's just kind of a thing that moguls and billionaires buy just because it's almost like not in the same way, but it's almost like owning like a football club or a baseball club. I mean, that's for the real mega billionaires, but this is kind of like, I'm a crypto billionaire and I get to own the news. Yeah. It's similar to Bezos buying Wall Street Journal, right? Or Washington Post, sorry.
The Bezos of Bitcoin.
Yeah. Yeah. I think there's something that's kind of attractive about that. But in terms of cash flow, no, it's like not, especially a big operation like that. I think the operations and media that are going to make it over the next few, years or a decade are going to be the more nimble kind of, leaner operations that are kind of like independent journalism.
But that's where a lot of journalism is heading now anyway.
Yeah.
It's a lot of where the trust is.
Yeah.
I also think I think journalism is important, but I think in these niche things, you need to also have the event bit because they feed each other. Like you lose money on the content, but the content makes people aware of the event.
Yeah.
And the event pays you to have the content.
Yeah.
But it's like Bitcoin Magazine probably would struggle without the event.
Oh, no doubt.
It
would not exist without it. Yeah. Yeah, but the magazine's a good plus, right? I mean, it's a huge marketing tool. It's the oldest magazine in Bitcoin. When it's run right, the content's great in it, and the magazines look amazing. I think they do. And they're building like an experience. It's like a collector's experience thing with the magazines. I mean, their whole company is about curating an experience, right? And I think they've done a really good job, especially considering they were on life support in 2020, like many companies were. Yeah. But they bounced back pretty hard. But yeah, and with regards to like general media and crypto, I think that, you kind of just said it there, recapping what I was saying, that it's really just going to be what we've seen in media writ large is just traditional media kind of facing this independent wave of media that people like more, because they've kind of asked themselves a question where it's like, the traditional media have been wrong about so many things. So you can't even use this might be better. You can't even use we're more legitimate, we're not gonna, kind of just spew facts that aren't true. And it's like, you've actually been wrong about so many things. So this guy streaming from his basement, might as well just look at him dissect news in real time. Like I saw that with the Trump shooter. It was crazy to see how much Twitter lit up with just wild, just because it's a web of information. There's so many people at the site that can circulate different angles from what actually happened. And like, that's always going to win out with people's curiosity versus, a bunch of suits sitting in front of a desk showing you like one angle. It's like, why do I want one angle of an event when I can get
everything?
Yeah.
And then like real time updates is then suddenly you got the bit where there's people screaming it because there's a guy on the fucking roof.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does. It's become a real problem to get to truth as well.
Yeah, that's true.
Or an acceptance of, there is nuance. Like the Venezuela thing's been interesting. I don't know if you've been following it.
I only know that it's happening. I have not been following it closely though.
I mean, so Maduro,
yeah,
he fiercely competitively fought election. I can't remember her name, but they've got this thing where they usually ban journalists. We had Mauricio from Lebanon in here. I think he gave us the full story because he's Venezuelan. And she ran a really interesting campaign. She wasn't the person you would vote for, but she led the campaign. And every time they banned someone, they just put another person in. So it was like a Dread Pirate Roberts for the election. All the exit polls said they'd won and Maduro had lost. And then Maduro declared victory. And there's videos of boxes being looted and voting boxes being looted and yada yada. But there's obviously a massive uprising. People are so fed up of. They've had 2 or 3 decades of socialist bullshit.
Right.
That's completely failed. But you're getting these different perspectives coming in. You've got that idiot Max Blumenthal from Grey Zone who seems to always love and support the most oppressive regimes. And he's pointing out that, the issues with Venezuela are down to the sanctions. But there's no nuance. It's like he's blaming America and everyone's blaming the socialist government. Yep. I think you can come out and say, look, Maduro is a socialist dictator and he and Chavez have fucked the country. But sanctions are evil and have not helped.
Yeah.
They've as ever, they've never delivered. They've not delivered on what they hoped, but they have starved the people of Venezuela from things they need. I mean, I've seen it myself. I went to Cucuta in Colombia. I saw people, all day, they're kind of flowing across the border to buy things because they can't get them in Venezuela.
Yeah.
And so, I just think you need the nuance in there.
You do. I mean, you can't just say that it's one thing or the other. All these things are so complicated, right?
But that's what everyone is doing. There's no clickbait. There's no excitement with nuance. It's like orange man bad, orange man good.
Yeah.
There's someone saying, well, look, hold on a second. He's done some good things. He's done some bad things. This is where he might be good for the country. This is where he might be terrible for the country. If he wins, we should be cautious about this, but optimistic about this. Like, no one wants to hear that shit.
No, everything's just so fragmented and polarized in the U.S. at this point that people don't want to have that discussion. I think a lot of people do, but they just feel silenced by kind of like the increasingly loud and angry wings of either the right or the left. Yeah,
we had Troy Cross in here the other day, and he was talking about the distribution of Bitcoin. And they ran a study like who owns Bitcoin. It was a really interesting study in that some things you would totally expect is dominated by young males, and women are falling behind, and so are kind of boomers to old people. But when you look at the distribution by your politics, it's fairly even, with these little spikes on the wings, whether it's left or right, and then a huge spike of people who consider themselves neutral, but it's a very, very even spread. And what he was basically saying is Bitcoin doesn't give a fuck about your politics. If you need hard money, you get hard money. But rightly identifying that the wings can control the conversation. So I think a lot of people feel like Bitcoin is very right wing.
Yeah. and in some cases, I think that that's true with a lot of the loudest proponents for sure, like per that point,
but not the owners.
No.
And the point Troy's trying to make is that if you want to promote Bitcoin, you should be looking at where the gaps are. And the gaps are old people, women, and politically neutral.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think that's why the Democrats have done such a terrible job of actually, like, they kind of just made it easy for Trump to like walk up to a Bitcoin conference and say to like a bunch of raving Bitcoiners that he's basically not going to ban their livelihood. And they're like, let's go. It's like, this didn't need to be a partisan position at all, but it became one. And I think that over time it won't be as much, but that's been one thing that I've been like kind of a little bit leery about the Trump thing is just the optics for Bitcoin. I think that in the US, a lot of the stigma around supporting Trump is starting to dissolve a little bit.
Yep, I agree.
But there's still that lingering contingent of the population that's going to be like, Trump likes this. That must mean it's bad.
Yeah.
Because there's still a lot of people who think that way. And there are going to be a lot of people who vote for Kamala because they think Trump's literally evil. So, but that's kind of a tangent from the main point where it's like, doesn't have to be a partisan issue,
No, it shouldn't be. Like air. Air is not a partisan issue.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Water's not a partisan issue.
Dollars aren't partisan issues.
No, both of them like to print the shit out of it. Do you think the Democrats are going to come out with a pro Bitcoin / crypto policy ahead of the election?
I think they'll ease it off. I think they'll ease off some of their kind of stronger views, but I don't think anything major. Just kind of like, the same way that I don't think Trump can really announce like a legitimate Bitcoin strategy, because it's not really something that he can. I mean, the Treasury Department can do things, right? But like, that's why Cynthia Lummis presented that bill, because this is something that would conceivably need to go through, the legislature to pass. I don't think the Democrats will do anything. I think that the fact that RFK is up there saying that he's going to buy like 500 a day is hilarious, because to me, it kind of amplifies the fact that there's not really anything that most of the parties can do. Like, that's not a serious thing that he's saying, because he's, love Bobby, he's not going to win, But yeah, I think the Democrats will probably just try to ease off the rhetoric a little bit, and hopefully just respect that like, this is like a huge issue for a lot of people. And if they're not a little more serious about how they're approaching this industry, then they're going to lose a lot of votes. Because that's the thing that I think will work for Trump, is like there are legitimately a lot of like independently minded, maybe libertarians or centrists in the Bitcoin community who like will be single issue voters and who will vote for Trump just for that. It's not a huge part of the country, but it's another win on the scoreboard for the groups that he's attracting, right? So
where do you think Bitcoin culture is right now? Look, I've got my own views, but I don't want to lead you with that.
They're I don't know. I guess I would start off by saying like kind of like the hackneyed thing. There is no Bitcoin culture, because it's just all of these different sub communities.
I mean, that was my point. It's kind of fragmented a lot.
Yeah, it's much less focused than it's ever been. Like there have been periods where I think that there have been dominant forces in Bitcoin kind of directing the conversation. Maybe in like the early days, that would have been much more cypherpunk. Like they're worried about actually scaling for payments that are private, and that are available, and like the like the biggest edge cases, and then in the same kind of like through SegWit, probably a lot of that, was the dominant force. And then, after the last bull market, it kind of became, I think, people extolling Bitcoin's monetary properties and kind of saying it's like, this is the thing that is going to help people during in a world where everything's hyperinflating. Like the monetary use cases are the use cases in terms of protecting people against inflation. Like you had this kind of like libertarian streak that just took over all of the conversation. Like nothing technical was really talked about. It was all about like the merits of a Bitcoin economic and monetary system. And then we had ordinals people come in and kind of dance around in wizards costumes and be like, Bitcoin is whatever the fuck you want it to be. And you can put JPEGs on the blockchain if you want. And now we have a presidential candidate talking about it, which I think just kind of dilutes it even further. I mean, eventually, like you really don't want a Bitcoin culture, right? Like I was thinking about this at the conference. It's like, it's kind of weird that we all kind of come together at these massive conferences. We're just like, this, decentralized cryptographic money is amazing. Let's all have fun about it. I think it's a testament to how powerful the idea is, but I don't know. I think it'd be good if, a few conferences from now, kind of what you said, and I don't think this is going to happen, but we kind of get back to more focus, almost as though it would be like a developers conference of like, okay, how can we actually improve this thing?
Yeah, I think you need a strong culture for development.
Yeah.
I think that's the one area that's really important. It's a strong culture for development, because I think we need to maintain really high quality levels of programming and guardianship over the protocol. And even just guardianship, defense against hacks and various things that people try to do to attack the network. I think that bit's super important, and I hope money continues to flow to developers. But as an identity, how people make Bitcoin their identity.
Yeah,
I mean that's already fragmented, and I mean the Bitcoin maxi thing, the hardcore maxi thing, is kind of. I think it's fading into the distance a bit.
I think it is a little bit, and I think that's like the hardcore maxi thing with Bitcoin as an identity was very much a product of like post I don't know, like 18 post fork wars for sure. Like, so like the 17, 18, and then really this kind of picked up in the 2020, 21 crowd where it's like maximalism became an identity. And, I don't think you see that as much. Like you see a pure like obsession over Bitcoin, but you don't see the same kind of identity sharing in those earlier crowds that are more technical. Because I think they're thinking about Bitcoin purely on its merits rather than like the social impact, which I think is that's a feature of this kind of new crowd of maximalists, right? Because it's almost like the difference between like Bitcoin maximalism as a cultural trend and Bitcoin maximalism as purely like a technical choice. Which I think is like the earlier, the SegWit and earlier crowds, that's what they kind of gravitated towards Bitcoin for. Because like this is a specific approach to a problem that exists in cyberspace when you're trying to reconcile scarcity and movements of money without having to rely on too many counterparties. So, I think that with that too, then every conversation for consensus, kind of like we were talking about earlier, I was saying like consensus is like, kind of it's not a thing, it's like an idea, it's something that you're working towards, and that becomes infinitely more difficult the larger the wider Bitcoin community is and all the sub communities are, because then you can't actually have legitimate conversations because people don't know what they're talking about. And sometimes people might know enough to kind of understand what's on the table, but they're not really actually adept enough to really express what this means for Bitcoin in the future, like with all the covenant stuff. I think that, we probably have a couple of more good soft forks in the future, maybe if we're lucky, and then nothing's going to get done because there's going to be no way to coordinate around it unless all of the custodians basically say we're doing this thing.
Yeah, it's like, kind of like theory of almost like stalemate ossification, right?
Yeah.
Which I'm not too worried about.
Yeah, I'm not super worried about it. I think there are a few things that would be nice to have before we get to that point.
What do you want to see?
I mean, covenants sound like they'd be useful.
Yeah.
I'm not like, I haven't tracked this stuff as much as I used to when I would write about it when I was at CoinDesk and Bitcoin Magazine. But I mean, the fact that you can basically have security guarantees into your wallet that would allow you to, sweep, a payment if an attacker is trying to take your Bitcoin, or have like a fail safe for like it always goes to this address if someone tries to move your funds. That seems incredibly useful and amazing for security. And if there's a way that we can implement it without breaking stuff, it just seems like a no-brainer to me. I think there's been a lot of political bullshit that has stopped something like CTV from coming in.
I feel sorry for Jeremy Rubin.
Yeah, I do too.
Yeah,
I do too. But all of this other, Bitcoin layer 2 stuff, I just don't. Anyone framing any of the updates is like being able to like make Bitcoin Ethereum. I think people need to be leery of, because it's like it's not really how it works. It's just different programming for how to unlock Bitcoin so that they can interact with these layer 2s. Some of these are just multi-signature wallets. Do you know
how I see it?
How?
I purely see it like a casino. You go in.
That's true.
Here's some dollars. Give me some tokens. Give me some chips. I'm gonna go and do what I want with these chips. Because when you're in a casino, you can, obviously you can gamble with it, but you can get drinks with your chips. You can just use your chips in your casino, and then at the end of your trip to the casino, you give your chips back and you get your dollars. That's all it is to me. It's like it's not really a proper layer 2. To me, the Lightning Network is the only proper layer 2.
Yeah.
These to me are just, they're just people who are just, they're a counterparty who are allowing me to like play with other tools while they hold my Bitcoin.
Yeah, and I agree with that. And so I agree with your positioning it as like a casino, because that's literally all these things are until we have legitimate financial use cases. But so where I come from in terms of like, OpCat can do this for these layer 2s or other things that people try to pitch. I say like, well, why don't we just go to like Liquid? Like, if you really want to just do like dumb financial and like casino game shit, like on Ethereum, on Bitcoin, just go to a sidechain and just like peg your Bitcoin in and then use because OpCat's on Liquid, you can do all of these things already. So to me, I just don't see why you wouldn't
the risk.
Yeah. Why you wouldn't just do that. And not even necessarily introduce the risk, but just even building anything like more on chain is it's clunky. Like eventually Bitcoin will not scale with all of these things being on chain, it's just not going to happen. You're going to have anchors to financial institutions and other things that hold your coins for you. And that's what's really going to matter whenever there's any fork considerations down the road. I think in like SegWit, with SegWit and SegWit 2x, people were talking about the miners and the New York agreement, which were a lot of financial actors too. So like they had their part in what was going down. But going forward, it's not going to be the miners. It's going to be the financial institutions that custody like 90% of the coins in existence, who basically get to make the decisions on what's going to happen. And this kind of is going into a tangent that may seem kind of bleak, but I don't really see how you get away from that future. The only thing that's important, though, which is why I think some things like covenants and some of those more on-chain, solutions are important, is like you do want to have that alternative. So it's like I want to be able to have better custody tools with something like CTV, or maybe even OpCat. CTV seems more elegant, but I want to be able to have those so I don't have to go and trust, Coinbase or Bitwise or some other custodian with my coins. But
and by virtue of that, trust the U.S. government.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I would like to see a few more changes, but I think they're more in the tooling area of like, how does this improve people's access of their Bitcoin and how they can move it in self-custody? If I want to do anything that like is playing with my Bitcoin for financial reasons, I think there's going to be plenty of things that you can do down the road. And like, sorry, most of them won't be decentralized, at least not the way that people want them to be, but they won't be.
I do like the expansion of the conversation. It's the one thing that I found a bit more interesting over the last year, where we have parts of the conversation which aren't Bitcoin, but kind of are Bitcoin. And what I mean by that is there's a lot of talk about Nostr. I mean, I use it a little bit. To me, it's a Bitcoin chat room at the moment. But what I found is like if Twitter's become marketing, and I use Primal to access Nostr, but that's been the place I go and ask Bitcoin questions when I've got them, which isn't often. But if you post a Bitcoin question on Nostr, the signal's so much higher and the responses are quick.
Right.
Great answers. And that's become part of this whole kind of movement. It's like we become more of a decentralized movement than a Bitcoin movement.
Yeah.
I think that's cool. And I also just love that all the AI conversations. I think that's all super interesting because it's so many things to discuss, from are aliens, are the AI going to kill us, to, oh, here's some really cool tools. You can be more efficient, to AI needs a money. It needs a neutral money. And Bitcoin was the best placed tool out there to be the neutral money for AI.
Yeah.
I find all that fascinating. And again, it's like that Bitcoin season 2 thing that takes us away from just talking about Bitcoin.
Yeah, for sure. Nostr is sick. Nostr is dope. I hope that protocol continues to get improved upon, because I think that there's something really special. The idea of like totally, if you really needed to, being able to like spin up decentralized social media. And the AI intersection with Bitcoin has been super interesting with all of these miners. I'm pretty anxious to see which ones will actually be able to pull off legitimate AI strategies and which ones are just like blowing smoke up their investors' asses, because it's been a huge win for in the sales of their stock prices.
Of course.
Yeah. Yeah, I know, right? The comeback of the century.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think, and they have, their strategy is they're going to rent out tier 3 data centers and just operate them because their team has data center expertise. There are others like, Hive and Iron who are trying to build data centers on their mining sites. And I don't know how selling or marketing that compute works.
Yeah, I was talking to Harry Sudok about this because, I mean, I'm fascinated by it. I talked to the Iron guys quite a bit about it, but it's a very small percentage of what they're doing. But he was saying it's not a completely aligned skill set, and it might just become a pure service play, in that there are people who need land and power access, and you may even just lease the land to them to build out their AI data centers, their access to the power, because a lot of these Bitcoin companies have access to the power. I don't know how it's going to play out. I just find it fascinating that they're doing this. And the thing I like about it as well is AI is kind of given a bit of a cover to Bitcoin mining, because if you're going to attack Bitcoin mining for energy, you kind of have to attack AI for the same reason now. Yeah,
and it's sparked a completely new conversation on energy security in the U.S. Like this is the first time I think we've seen a lot of politicians throw their support behind nuclear.
Yes.
And it's going to start, I think, a renaissance for building nuclear capacity in the U.S., which has been basically flat since like the 2000s and 90s.
Well, the interesting thing, the interesting thing about that, or the problem with that is how long it takes to build shit in the US.
That's true.
I mean, I'm sure I heard the other day is like the cost in the US are like 5 times what the cost is for, say, China.
Yeah, for sure. And some of that will hopefully get curtailed because, I mean, the Biden administration already talked about kind of cutting some of that red tape. If we get if Trump gets in office and there's a full Republican Senate and House, then they're gonna let it rip. I mean, they're gonna drill for oil and gas, and they're gonna try to build as much nuclear as possible, hopefully, and like cut a bunch of bullshit red tape that makes it more expensive than it has to be. But also, some of those costs are going to just be because of cost of living here is higher. But we definitely could. Yeah, it's gotten wild.
Wow. Mate, honestly, the costs here, I mean, we've been hit twice, right? Your costs have gone up and our pound has fallen. I mean,
yeah, that's tough.
Do you know
that's tough.
The first time I came to the US, it was £2.05 to the dollar.
Yeah, that's...
And we're at like £1.30 or something now.
Yeah, when I was in St. Andrews, it was like $1.50 for a pound, which was brutal. But, I mean... God, 250.
205.
Okay.
205. Yeah.
Still wild. That's crazy.
It was easy to do the math when you're buying something as well. But now, look, there was a point, I think we headed down nearly dollar parity at one point.
Yeah, we got real close.
With the gilt thing.
Yeah, with the gilt crisis, we got real close.
Yeah. But we bounced back to 130, but we haven't got back to the 150, 160, 70.
Yeah. And, you know, Nashville used to be a cheaper city, but it's not anymore.
No, it's, I mean, just some of the things as well. Like, we went the other night to Top Golf. So, me and the kids and Danny and Kurt. And we had 2 hours Top Golf, drink each, and a bit of food each. We spent, what was it, $300 in total? Well, yeah. And so, I mean, you do that into pounds, it's a lot of fucking money.
Yeah.
It's like £200.
Yeah.
We're like, this is like going bowling. It's like, no, going bowling in England, you know, the 5 people go bowling, have a drink, something to eat for under £100. That felt expensive. Going to Starbucks, you get like a coffee's like $7 now.
Yeah.
It's like £5.50 or whatever the cost of it. It's a lot of money for
beer's like $6-7 for a draft.
Yeah. But I've just noticed everything's got really super expensive.
Yeah.
Stand out expensive to me, and I felt it when me and Kurt were over in Canada. When we crossed the border, Canada's so cheap, and they think it's expensive in Canada. Canada was cheap.
Yeah, because the Canadian dollar is like terrible against the US dollar. It's like, I think 71 cents for $1 US.
It's inflation still on the table being discussed here. Is it still a big topic?
71 cents US dollar for $1 Canadian. Inflation in the US. Yes. Yeah, I think it's like the number one thing that Americans are most worried about right now. And it's going to be the thing that I think it's like one of those silent issues where it's like the media obviously talks about it, but other things get talked about more, especially like in the culture war. And, you know, it's like if you look at like certain polls, it's like inflation in the economy are like things that people are most worried about. So,
yeah. Well, I mean, if you talk to Lynn, this is going to be a decade-long issue.
Yeah.
We're going to oscillate in and out of high inflation.
Yeah, I think that's the thing that like really freaks me out the most, you know, trying to start a family. And I'm just thinking about like, what is the next 10 years going to look like for, you know, my little boy or girl? They're just going to like inherit just an absolute shit show. Like your dollar is hyperinflating. Robots are taking all of your jobs.
Aliens are observing us. World War III is broken out.
Yeah, right. You know, we got another like either like demented person for president or another movie star. Arnold Schwarzenegger runs for the presidency.
Yeah, you want the Rock, man.
Everyone always jokes about that. I think that honestly, a Rock versus Trump presidency would be hilarious.
Fucking great. We'll have our popcorn out.
Yeah, we kind of get what we deserve at a certain point. I mean, it's just everything.
Yeah, but like it's a historic thing in the US where you have these famous people run. I mean, Schwarzenegger as governor of California.
That's true. I mean, Ronald Reagan too.
Yeah.
But damn, like, you know, maybe it's because I wasn't around then, but it's like Reagan just seems so much classier than Trump. Like, you know, say what you want about his policies or whatever, but just feel like the quality has just been crazy. I mean, like, especially when you think back to like World War II, where like Winston Churchill would go on these like 30-minute long speeches that are just filled with all of these historical references and beautiful rhetoric. Like homeboy would wake up and have a freaking, a scotch in the bathtub in the morning and a cigar and have his like full English and then just like attack the day. Like,
yeah. But I mean, look, we always romanticize about Churchill, but he doesn't have a perfect report card.
Yeah, that's true. That's very true.
I just found it funny when people started, after the last debate, they started flashing up the Obama-Mitt Romney debate. And it was like, oh, hello, sir. Hello, sir.
Yeah.
I want a wonderful debate. Oh, you are. Like, they were so nice to each other.
It's such a stark difference.
Yeah.
It's such a stark difference.
It's like, I'm better than you at golf. You can't even hit a ball. You're a fucking idiot. It's like
that is one of the greatest moments in American debate history when they were up there arguing golf scores.
I mean, it's like this weird thing where you're so fucking entertained, you can't take your eyes off it. You're like, what is going on?
It's great television. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's scary. It's like it's the government for the entire fucking world peace apparatus. Just slowly, taking a shit in front of the entire world.
Do you reckon Xi's like texting Putin going, did you fucking see that?
Yeah, it's crazy. And
We've got these fucking idiots.
Yeah. And, I mean, that's why I say like the U.S. kind of gets what it deserves. Like, that's the thing about Trump is just such a long time coming because he's a fuck you to the political elite. And that's why a lot of the people who like hate Trump and don't understand how anyone could support him don't understand how much they hate the political elite on both sides of the aisle, like the GOP and Democratic kind of uniparty. They hate them so much that like, yes, they will vote for this, walking tan ad, walking spray tan ad of a man.
Listen, during his speech, he did say, he was saying he's against the administrative state.
Yeah.
And he's against the three-letter agencies. I can't remember exact wording. And I've always felt like Vivek Ramaswamy's been pretty good on this as well, about the sides of government. I hope, if Trump does win, and I hope Vivek gets a role in his administration and they actually fucking deliver on this stuff.
Yeah, I think he's going to be around.
Yeah, because you have an issue, man.
Yeah. The administrative state? Or Yeah, we have big issues.
It's very un-American. It's pretty much everything the forefathers tried to stop.
Yeah. Yeah, well, and the way that the executive branch in the US has really kind of accreted power over the last 50, 60, 70 years. People always talk about executive orders, but all of these agencies that have sprung up. And that's why, a lot of people, especially on the right in the US, are super stoked about the Chevron case. Yeah. And people on the left are saying this is terrible because it means the agencies have less power. And it's like, well, yeah, that is what it means.
Yeah, that's a good thing.
Yeah. And most people don't even know, I think most Americans could not tell you like the actual significance of Supreme Court cases, let alone like fucking, these goulash bills that they push through Congress where it's like, wait, hang on, you're putting an infrastructure bill alongside aid to Ukraine. Like, seems like we should talk about these things as two completely separate issues, but
that's all the horse trading.
Yeah.
I don't know how real it is, but I watched the first 2 seasons of House of Cards. And basically it just felt like every episode, like once you get out, forget the family stuff, everything on the Hill within the White House was a guy going and say, I need this, well, give me this. And then go to another guy and say, okay, he wants this, give me this. And it's just all this fucking horse trading of bullshit.
Yeah.
And it's not good.
No, it's not good. The American taxpayers left holding the bag of a bunch of really stupid shit.
The middle class and poorest people have been left holding the bag. It's been great for the elites.
Yeah, and that's what people don't understand about, or at least they're starting to now. But a lot of people on the left like have characterized or caricatured Trump supporters, but like Trump single-handedly reshifted the Republican Party to make it a party about labor. Like, whether or not you want to say he's going to actually do things that make it better for them is kind of irrelevant because he is their candidate. He is getting the labor vote. It's just a different type of labor than we've been used to since the New Deal Democrats basically made the Democratic Party the party of labor back in the 30s with Roosevelt. So I don't know. It feels like we're just in a total paradigm shift in U.S. politics right now. And then the assassination attempt really drove home for me just how crazy and historic this time is, honestly.
Yeah. And but for a turn of the head, he was dead, man.
I know.
Fuck.
It's crazy. It's one of those things that really, I don't know, makes me think. Not like spiritual or anything, but I'm like, man, that's just a weird coincidence. Like,
it's almost like he turned as it came.
Yeah.
It was like Matrix.
Yeah.
It was like that.
Trump's an EO.
So, yeah. Did you see the meme of that where somebody did that with him? It was fucking brilliant. I think it's made a lot of people like Trump.
Oh yeah. I want to like knock on wood because anything could happen. The U.S. Political, the U.S. political news cycle has a short attention span, but he was already so favored before that. It's hard for me to think that almost doesn't just completely galvanize his base and people who are on the fence, because I don't care if you like Trump. I don't care if you hate him. When you look at that video of him with his fists in the air and there's blood streaming out his face and there's an American flag and you're an American, gangster. You gotta get fired up a little bit. Yeah. You gotta get fired up a little bit.
We're moving here. We're gonna become citizens. I try and be as objective as possible. My family at home are not fans of Trump.
Yeah, I can see that. Most people around the world are not fans of Trump.
They aren't, but they get fed CNN.
Yeah.
They get fed a personality, not a policy.
Yeah.
And I've spent a lot of time in red states. And I think if you live in Europe, you don't really understand red states.
That's very true.
Because blue states are like all of England. Like the UK is like blue states. Anywhere you go in the UK is a blue state.
Right.
If we had a presidential election in the UK, every county would be a blue state. It is what it is. We don't have this Republican thing. It's a different form of conservatism. It's weird in the UK as well because Labour, which is left wing, people would say, is that like the Democrats? I'm like, yeah, it is, but it's working class as well. It's traditionally it's been working class. It's been where the unions are. Whereas conservatives in the UK is the people who send their kids to private school. Mm-hmm. It's the economic argument. So we don't have a complete alignment between left and right of the US. Therefore, we would be a blue state country. And so if you don't understand red states, you don't understand Republicans. If you haven't been to a rodeo,
yep.
If you haven't been to a bar in Dallas or a steak restaurant in, not Austin, but outside of Austin. Like if you haven't been to these places, you haven't been to, Louisiana. I'm like North Carolina. That's still a red state.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you haven't gone to a gun range, you just have no understanding, zero understanding of Republicans. That you have zero understanding of why Trump has an appeal.
Yeah.
But he's talking to them.
Yes.
And you know what? He's also talking to a lot of Democrats.
Yeah, he is for sure. A lot of people who don't buy into a lot of the crazy shit that like a lot of the radical wings of the left leaning factions of the U.S. support.
But this is a conversation I end up having with my family is like, you just haven't seen it.
Yeah.
You cannot understand. And they're like, yeah, but he's a criminal or he's like, he's a bit of a perv with some dodgy friends.
Yeah.
They
well, that's like table stakes for an American president. Yeah. Like if you're not a pussy hound, like you don't get to go and run for this office. It's like this office requires two things. You have to approve military spending to bomb people in other countries.
You gotta like to fuck.
Yeah. And you've got to be a creepy old guy.
But they don't understand it. And I think that's been a problem for Trump. But I also think I think there are political people who also get Trump.
How you get Trump in the sense of...
there's conservative politicians in the UK understand Trump better than conservative voters in the UK.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, he's a master at marketing himself and getting media attention. He's like...
It's funny, we get these emails or comments on YouTube and they're like, yeah, but Trump this. It's like, yeah, I know all that.
Yeah.
I know all that. But in the end, you got to pick a president that has to improve the US and improve the world.
Yeah.
And so your choice is between these two candidates.
And man, it's
personality
like
is quite down on the list. It is policy, conviction, ability. And I could be so wrong on this, but if Trump wins the election, I think gets on the phone to Putin, he's like, let's figure this shit out.
If that did happen, though, it would be, for those paying attention, just a massive glitch in the simulation for people. Because it would be like, wait a second. He's supposed to be the super incompetent one who wants to start more wars, not the one who can actually end a conflict that should have been ended 2 years ago and that we sabotaged. So, I mean, I hope he can do it. I'm not totally convinced.
I think he can pick up the phone. And I think the person at the other end will take the phone call.
Yeah. I think that's going to be the defining thing for if we can talk about a Trump legacy, if he's reelected. Like, how does his foreign policy actually hold up when things are fucking devolving around the world?
Yeah.
And, that's going to be, he talks about his peace record when he was in office and like, yeah, he didn't start any new shit. That's true. But he didn't really have to it's kind of the quiet before the storm. He didn't really have to do anything. But with regards to what you were saying about just like
his diplomacy with North Korea was pretty interesting.
Yeah.
He tried to bring Kim Jong-un into the fold, right?
Yeah.
He had the meeting. He shook hands. He had the photo opportunity. So that was at a time where North Korea was threatening everyone with nukes.
Yeah,
whether they would have done it or
right.
not. I mean, it would have been ridiculous. You fire one nuke, that country's dead. But
right.
those threats stopped.
That's true. Yeah, I guess I just mean in terms of like specifically Middle East policy and other things, or like places where there have been hot wars for a long time, and it seems like the United States just very easily just jumps into like a new country. It's like, okay, well, we've instigated a regime change in Syria or Libya. Let's hop over somewhere else. And yeah, I think going back to just his campaign in general, I think he's been much better coached this time around. Like he seems much more restrained, like in the campaign and other things.
He might have also had a moment, right? Do you remember Pulp Fiction?
Yeah.
At the start, Samuel L. Jackson avoids the guy comes out, bang, 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 and just doesn't get shot.
Yeah.
And he kind of has that epiphany when he's in the car, and it changes him. I mean, how do you not survive an assassination attempt by millimeters and your head moves?
That's probably a good point.
And not go home and go, fuck.
This is very real.
This is very real. Like, what am I doing?
Right. I think that has to just fundamentally change a person. But it's also funny though, because like you see like who he is on TV, but then you go on his True Social and he's just like still always talking shit.
Yeah.
You got to give him his little cage, his little corner of the world to shout into.
Give everyone a nickname.
It's actually perfect that he has that. It's just like you don't have to no one in like the Twitter sphere has to interact with him. All of his followers can still go on True Social, and he's the biggest account, so it's perfect.
Oh man. Well, listen, roll on November. Popcorn will be out. I was saying to somebody, I think it was yesterday, that all I hope is if whichever party wins, it's such a clear win that it doesn't end up in the courts. And I fear for your country if Trump doesn't win, because no one's going to believe it.
That's true. I think that's very true. I think no matter who wins, it's going to be extremely contested. There's going to be a lot of post-election unrest no matter what happens.
Yeah, but my fear is if the Dems win it and it's tight.
Oh, if the Dems win it and it's tight, they will legitimately be crazy protests and riots.
Whereas if the Republicans win it and it's tight, I think the Dems will be the DNC has to look inwards and go, what are we doing? Yeah,
I think that's probably true. There's going to be a lot of protests still. There might be riots. I think there's going to be riots either way.
Yeah, but it'd be different kind of riots.
It would be different kind of riots. One would be like Trump is going to like destroy democracy. The other was going to be like we literally had this stolen twice in a row.
Yeah. It could be the Republican riots. Look, whatever people say about what happened on January 6th.
January 6th, yeah.
That was people.
Cursed day, the worst day since the outbreak of the Civil War, according to many people.
Well, that was the people with the guns.
Or worse than, yeah.
A protest by the Dems is, swap your AR-15 for a fucking skinny cappuccino.
Yeah. Antifa's armed though.
Yeah.
Antifa's very heavily armed.
Yeah.
Someone actually made this point on a political podcast recently. This free press analyst, I think she also was an opinion editor at Newsweek, Bata Ungar Sargon, she said, it's kind of interesting that a lot of the political violence that we've seen so far has actually really been more from the left in terms of like the Black Lives Matter protests and all of these things that like businesses were burned down and looted. It's kind of actually insane that the closest we got to that was January 6th, where no one was actually one person was shot by police, but the crowd themselves were not armed and they didn't do anything.
What's the deal with Andy Ngo? Because I read something about him recently. Someone in the UK got criticized for sharing. Oh, it was the guy from Mumford & Sons. Oh, can you look it up? There's a guy in Mumford & Sons shared his book or something on social media. They tried to cancel it.
Really?
And they ended up quitting Mumford & Sons.
No shit, really? That's why he left?
Yeah. I can't remember his name. Winston Marshall. Was it? We shared a post about Andy Ngo, wasn't it? And I'm sure Andy knows all he's doing is reporting on what Antifa are.
Yeah, he's pretty...
What's controversial about it?
I don't know. I've only seen his posts and stuff. I think he's pretty controversial in the sense that he's like kind of... his language can be kind of acidic sometimes.
Right.
And just like, so it's like with anything, it's like just kind of really harsh takes on woke stuff. And the far left hates that. Like, so I'm sure he said some stuff that's pissed a lot of people off. I don't think it's anything where, what you're not letting someone talk to people. Like you're not letting like someone like have a platform because he's talked to this guy or like reshared his stuff. That generally, I think that stuff's just absolutely ridiculous. And it shows that you usually don't actually have an argument,
How dangerous are Antifa?
It's a good question, man. I don't know.
Fucking weirdos. What were we meant to talk about today? Were we meant to do mining? Have you done a new report?
I said I could talk about mining stuff, but I mean, it's just the halving happened and now it's really brutal. Then we also wanted to talk about the conference a little bit, which we did. Talk about Trump dog.
Yeah, let's go on, finish out. Tell me a little bit about mining. Is that it? It's brutal. Ciao.
Yeah, I mean, it's brutal. Well, what's crazy is hash rate's going up right now too. We're finally getting a lot of these newer models like the S21 and M60 coming online. And so like, you've got like all-time low hash price, like $50 per day. So just for your, I don't have any, I'm not connected to the internet. So anyway,
yeah.
But like hash rate just hit like a new all-time high of like 661 exahashes or something. So it's going up. Difficulty is going to go up a lot. Like I think the last projections were like 11 to 12% for the next adjustment.
Holy fuck.
Yeah. And like hash price is already at like $50 per petahash per day. So for your listeners, like if you've got 50 petahashes, you're making $50 a day. And so we're already at like all-time low territory. And so we're just going to get dinged a little bit more. And it's interesting too, because usually at this time, it's the summer, you'd expect kind of seasonal curtailment to really affect how much hash rates come online. And that's like kind of happened some, but like hash rate got hit really hard after the halving, went down maybe 15%, 10-15%, and now it's just surging.
Jeez.
So you'd usually expect it to kind of like stagnate in July as all of the Texas miners are, curtailing. But I think a lot of hash rates coming online outside the US. I mean, going back to the AI piece, like that's going to be a huge component of the next decade. Miners are going to have to compete with AI data centers for power. That's going to be really difficult for them to do.
Is it a test of resiliency during this period?
I think so. It's just, we're getting to that point, kind of like what Harry said, where eventually Bitcoin miners, like I think every year and every halving epoch, we just get closer to a point where Bitcoin miners are like integrated so closely with the grid that, sometimes they're even powered on just on like an ad hoc basis based on when like there's too much energy and they're just trying to suck some of it up. Like Drew Armstrong had this scenario once where he was talking about like in a post block subsidy world where you only have transaction fees, like you're gonna have like Bitcoin mines at a power generation station or something like that, or at a other data center, and there's going to be a transaction fee spike and hash price is going to go up, and you're just going to turn your machines on for like a day to capture that and then just turn them off. Like whether that happens, I don't know if it will, but I mean, we're getting closer to the point where like you really have to be thinking about your mine as an infrastructure play. Like you're not just a Bitcoin mine, you're an infrastructure play for the grid, for something else, having to figure out like where your edge is with doing that, because at least in the US, like the days of just spinning something up and just throwing some ASICs at it, we were never kind of there, but that those days are long gone, right?
Yeah. Wild times, man. All right, well, listen, look, this is a wrap for us, dude.
Yeah.
It's good to see you.
Yeah, thanks, man. It's fun to do another pod in beautiful city of Nashville, Tennessee. So
might be the last time we were in the US making pods.
Yeah,
we're not decided.
Only exclusively Bedford going forward.
No, the studio's going to be in London.
Okay.
Just because there's people coming through, everyone goes through London, and I live so close to London, we can get in 40 minutes, like less than 40 minutes on a train. So getting people to bed, it'd be easier to go down there. Plus, I'm going to be spending more time in London. But the one rule of the pod is no remote shows.
That's cool.
Unless it'd have to be like a Snowden or something,
right?
Or an Assange, something where
it's going to have to be really worth it for you to hop on a plane or do you mean remote, like totally remote?
No, like Zoom.
Zoom, yeah.
Like the only way I'd ever do a Zoom interview after today would be, just it's somebody you cannot get to. You cannot get to Snowden, and he wanted to come on. Otherwise, it just doesn't matter. I don't care if you're. I don't care if you're Donald Trump. Donald Trump says, "Do you want to do a Zoom interview?" Of course, I'm fucking doing it. So, do you know what I mean? It's just like it's got to be 100% in person.
Good.
I mean, how many interviews have you done now?
This is the second one.
No, overall though.
Overall, like
10, 20, 30 podcasts.
Oh, dude, yeah, more than I remember.
And how many in person?
Probably like 5 or 6, and they're always the best.
Always the best.
They're always the best. Yeah.
So that's the one rule. It's an in-person show.
I think that's a good rule to have.
Just got to get people in the habit of letting me know when they come to London.
Yeah. Well, it's a good place to do it out of. Like you said, it's a super international city. Much better than hopping on a plane for you.
Yeah, I've done enough, man. I've done my time.
Put the boots up.
I've done my time.
Well, it's been an incredible, streak for this podcast. What, 7 years, 8 years?
The first episode came out, I think it was November, like the 17th, 2017. So like we're coming up to 7 years.
Okay. Well, that's honestly just incredible to think about. And, I know I speak for a lot of Bitcoiners when I say this was always the go-to podcast. Many workouts, many, grocery store runs, many sessions cooking dinner that I tuned in. And
well, I hope people listen to the new one.
Oh, they will too.
I feel we're trying to make the show that I think the Bitcoiners don't realize they want.
No, I think that they're still going to listen to you. Like there's going to be a following from the Bitcoin ecosystem that's going to follow you just because they're going to miss listening to a Peter McCormick interview. So
it's British.
Yeah, it is.
Well, look, man, I've always appreciated you. I mean, that last show we did was incredible, and I appreciate the work you're doing. And look, I wish you good luck with this new role. If you head through London, you let me know. If you want to come to our conference,
I definitely want to come to Cheat Code.
You should definitely come to Cheat Code.
I appreciate coming on for one of these final ones. So thanks for everything, man.
Let's let people know the secret.
No, they don't need to know.
No, fuck that. All right, man. Thank you, brother. Thank you, everybody. All right, we're out.
Thanks, Peter. See you, man.
See ya.